Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be going over the many components of the Continuum of Care, or CoC, as an introductory web series. This is Session 2, CoC Structure. This PowerPoint presentation is a more detailed explanation of the Continuum of Care's composition, specifically highlighting the Albany CoC. If you are a new member to the CoC, or a community stakeholder who wants to learn more, we hope to provide you with the basics that you'll need to know. This presentation was developed by CARES of New York and in collaboration with the Regional Racial Justice Advisory Committee. Let's start with our objectives. The goal of this web series is to provide a high-level overview of the Continuum of Care to encourage new membership and additional collaboration in the effort to end homelessness. The goal of today's session is to first provide a summary of Session 1, and then provide an overview of the CoC Planning Body structure and board, as well as CoC Representation and Leadership. Finally, we will define the roles of CoC operation, including HMIS, coordinated entry, and the collaborative applicant. In Session 1, we first discussed how a CoC is both a federal funding stream through HUD and a planning body. We also explained how every CoC has a name which identifies their geographic area and planning body. Then, we listed the key roles of the CoC, including preventing and ending homelessness, overseeing the required data management system, and providing oversight to its coordinated entry system. We then reviewed the CoC-funded programs, which include permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, transitional housing, and support services. Finally, we went over the HUD-defined homeless categories, including literally homeless, in imminent risk of homelessness, homeless under federal statutes, and fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence. Now that we have reviewed the first session, let's discuss CoC structure. The CoC Planning Body's membership has two distinct roles, that of the board member and the committee member. Within the board, there are standard board members and officers, which include the chairs, the secretary, and the treasurer. Within committees, there are also standard members and their own committee chairs. It is essential that the CoC has sufficient representation in both their board and membership to provide the best service. CoCs should strive to have persons in leadership positions be reflective of the populations they serve. There are two areas CoCs should focus on to achieve this: diversity and lived experience. Diversity includes demographic diversity across race, gender identity, sexual orientation, and disability, as well as diversity of experience, meaning those with different knowledge, positions, and cross-system connections. Lived experience refers to those who have either been homeless or are currently homeless. The Diversity Assessment Tool was created in collaboration with the RRJAC to assess the current capacity of your CoC board and identify its areas of strengths and deficits. Given that the population served by a CoC is diverse, it is essential that the diversity is reflected on the board. As a CoC, it is up to you to decide what percentage of identities and knowledge sets should be represented on your board based on the composition of your served populations. This tool can also be used to inform outreach for open and new board positions. CoC leadership is responsible for the following: developing and monitoring program standards for CoC-funded projects, developing funding priorities and approving projects applying for CoC program funding, as well as approving the process and tool to apply for CoC program funding. As a CoC planning body, there are several things to consider during the decision-making process. Namely, what are the impacts on persons in your system who are disproportionately represented? Who are impacted the most by decisions made at the CoC level? Will this decision positively affect those disproportionately represented? Are any people left out of this decision? Are the decisions made by the CoC impacting all possible people in your geographic area? And which persons in our system benefit the most from this decision? Within the CoC, there are several other separate entities which are responsible for a different CoC function. These include the Coordinated Entry Lead Entity, the HMIS Lead Entity, the CoC program-funded agencies, the collaborative applicant, which is responsible for assisting the CoC in submitting their application for their yearly HUD funding, and the unsheltered point-in-time count lead agency. The coordinated entry system is an approach to coordination and management of housing that allows homeless service agencies to directly connect people to interventions that will rapidly end their homelessness. There are two main goals of coordinated entry. The first being to prioritize persons who are homeless based on needs, to get access to most supportive housing opportunities to ensure housing stability. The second being to make it less cumbersome on persons who are homeless to apply for available supportive housing programs. The coordinated entry lead entity for Albany is the Homeless and Travelers Aid Society. It is important to note that the Albany coordinated entry system uses a no wrong door approach, so anyone who is homeless can go to any of the over 30 providers who participate in coordinated entry and fill out the same intake form. Every CoC must select a collaborative applicant to apply for the CoC program funding and CoC planning funding. The collaborative applicant submits the CoC application to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The collaborative applicant lead entity for Albany is CARES of New York. As collaborative applicant, CARES supports the Albany CoC in operating the continuum of care by ensuring the CoC is aware of all HUD requirements, by supporting operations of the board, membership, and committees, by presenting to the CoC best practices in preventing and ending homelessness from HUD and national advocates, and by leading completion of the annual CoC application and confirming or submitting data for the annual point-in-time and housing inventory counts. In order for the CoC to collect intake data from its service providers, it must first designate a Homeless Management Information System, or HMIS. The Albany HMIS system is a wards or foothold. The CoC must also designate a manager of the CoC's HMIS system, which will be known as the HMIS lead. 503's HMIS lead is CARES of New York. The HMIS lead agency will both ensure the HMIS system is administered in compliance with HUD requirements, as well as review, revise, and approve a privacy plan, security plan, and data quality plan for the HMIS system. The point-in-time count, or PIT, refers to when the CoC conducts a count of persons who are experiencing homelessness on a single night in order to get a snapshot of the total number. HUD requires that CoCs conduct PIT counts in order to capture the number of individuals experiencing both unsheltered homelessness, meaning sleeping on the street or in encampments, as well as sheltered homelessness, meaning in emergency shelters, transitional housing, and safe havens. The unsheltered PIT lead entity for Albany is Joseph's House and Shelter. The sheltered PIT lead entity for Albany is CARES of New York. CoCs must conduct a count of unsheltered homeless persons at least once every other year. This concludes Session 2, CoC Structure. In the next session, we will discuss CoC membership roles and benefits. Session 4 will regard operating a CoC, and Session 5 will regard committee responsibilities and mission statements. Thank you for listening.